Awesome. So my name is Anna Hankins and I co-own Over the Moon Farm and Flowers alongside Shae.
Shae Pesek.
And we're really excited about this topic today. We feel like pricing and some of the background business measures are so important to running a profitable and successful poultry business or any type of business. And we've been really grateful that the support that PFI has given us in the past couple of years around this topic, and also really excited to be chatting here with Ben today. I wanted to give just a little bit of context of how we all ended up here today. So Shae and I started our business in 2019, and we really started mostly with horticulture crops because they were the lowest input, highest return, and didn't take having quite as much cash flow as something like livestock does, although we knew that was the direction that we wanted to head. So in 2021, I did the Humane Farming Mentorship Program through the Food Animal Concerns Trust. I have that on a later slide if anyone wants it as a resource, and had the opportunity to be paired with Ben as my mentor. And our focus was really on pricing, on making sure that the numbers lined up, and making sure that we were able to grow a successful direct-to-consumer meat business by making sure that we were not losing money by doing so. And so that was really impactful and really influential. And now we are a couple years into having started with direct-to-consumer meat. In 2020, we did about 18,000 pounds of pastured poultry in the form of 2,000 plus chickens, 250 turkeys, 400 ducks, and we also do pork, beef, and seasonal cut flowers as well. We primarily sell direct to consumer. We do just a little bit of wholesale at this point, but we sell primarily through a meat CSA, which we modeled largely after Ben's meat CSA, which I know he'll share a little bit about. But we do a year-round meat CSA, and we also do a la carte orders, farmers market. We have partnership with other direct-to-consumer farms to offer meat, and then we sell just to a couple of local restaurants in the Cedar Rapids area. And is there anything you want to add, Shae, about
I
us?
think you did great.
Yeah, and so I'm going to hand it over to Ben. I want to just also frame that for this webinar, we're going to try to keep it as conversational as possible. I think that in the planning for this, we wanted to have it be kind of a conversation between someone who's a more experienced farmer and us as being a little bit newer. So we're, in kind of year 2, 3-ish of doing pastured poultry at scale. And so hopefully we can be really conversational, and you can ask your questions or comments in the chat box, and then we'll have time to kind of discuss as a bigger group towards the end. So I'll hand it over to Ben to share a little bit about his background.
Thank you, Anna and Shae. First of all, it's a really great pleasure to be working with PFI. And, it's really kind of a fun fruition of the mentorship program that we did to be on this panel together and be talking about this stuff that we spent so much time talking about together, and sharing kind of what we have learned and what we have experienced, and just trying to, I guess, maybe pass along the mentorship to a greater population, because we both really, or all three of us really care about pastured poultry and farming communities, and wanting to improve farm economies for everyone, because we really believe in this stuff and we want more of it. So about me, I started farming in 2013. I had absolutely no experience farming. I come from a city background. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, generations removed from anyone who is a farmer. Little side story there, my family actually does come from Iowa. Grimes, Iowa is named after one of my family members. So little Iowa connection there, and they were the last people who were farming in my lineage, and that would have been 3 generations ago. So really no experience farming, didn't grow up on a farm or anything like that. But I got into farming in 2013. I got really, really interested in food production and how it impacted our environment, and seeing how degrading the industrial food system was. I wanted to learn about an alternative way to do it. So I stumbled upon the pastured poultry and regenerative agriculture, although we didn't call it that back then. And just kind of went with it. So I've been doing this. This will be my 10th full season of production. On my farm, I raise chickens, ducks, and turkeys, as well as pigs and beef, but poultry is my main thing. Poultry is what we do a lot of, and I think we do a lot of it very well. And I think that it's a little enterprise that we have over the years grown because we do it well, and so few people are able to do it well and price themselves in a way that is sustainable for them, financially sustainable. So a couple of years ago, also branched out and wanted to do something that had the ability to have a bigger impact on the food system than just individual farms operating in their own cells to their own customers. And so started what we're calling Carolina Pastures. And so we're a collective of farmers working together to go after some bigger joint contracts. So in 2022, I think there were 6 of us who grew birds for Carolina Pastures. In previous years, we brought in pigs and lamb and sold that under the Carolina Pastures label. But birds right now is again the main thing. So I sell my product via a farmer's market. We just do one farmer's market. I do a home delivery program. We have a CSA, which Anna says she modeled after my program. I modeled it after Gross Family Farm in Indiana. So credit to him. And then we also have some farm partners, which I'll come back to. We sell to restaurants. That's primarily ducks is what we sell to restaurants. That's a good little niche product for restaurants. We also sell to, mom and pop groceries, natural food store, that kind of stuff. But really our biggest wholesale avenue and biggest growth with wholesale is to farm partners. And so this is blanket what I call other farmers who then resell our poultry. So they might grow pigs, they might grow vegetables, they might do dairy, whatever it is, and then they buy our poultry and sell our poultry to their customers. And that's really exciting, and that fits in really well with the Carolina Pastures model, just farmers working together for greater economic impact.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ben, for giving us that background. I'm excited to dive into our conversation.
Me too.
So we wanted to just start out by saying, Ben, back in 2021, I remember you telling me really early on that growing the chicken was the easy part or the fun part, and that everything else was the hard part and the important part. And we've really taken that, we tell ourselves that all the time. And so I just wanted to start the conversation by having you talk a little bit, and we can talk a little bit too, but like, why is this just such an important and crucial conversation that we're having today?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad that stuck with you. I think it's a stumbling block for a lot of us. We get into farming with this romantic vision of we're going to be on our land, we're going to be outdoors, playing with the animals, one with nature. And that's certainly why I got into farming. And then the economic realities of farming came and hit me broadsided real hard. And I think I wasn't prepared because these aren't things that we talk about in farming. We don't talk about the economics. We don't talk about the pricing. We don't talk about how hard of a business this is. And I think that's a real shame. And so I think these kind of conversations are counter to the books that we read, to the talks at a lot of conferences, which are all about, how fun it is and how easy it is and how romantic it is. And all credit to a lot of those pioneers out there who've done a lot of work in this field and who have gotten a lot of people excited about this, this farming thing that we all do. But I think that it's time that we as a community have these hard conversations so that more of us can actually do this, and that it's not just something that privileged people who have financial security are able to do for fun.
Yeah, a lot of what you say really resonates with us. And I feel like part of why we did the mentorship with you in the first place was we really wanted to be financially viable. And I feel like all we were hearing was, oh, you're going to lose money if you do chickens, or you're going to lose money if you do poultry. And I feel like that's not been our experience, but we know that it's the experience of so many. And so that figuring out the money part of it is just so important.
Well, and I think too, as beginning farmers, there's so much about production. A lot of the resources are all about production. And we were like definitely looking and striving to find other resources that we could learn about, pricing accurately and making money and profit. And there was just a lot of new concepts that I think, we're really glad that there are some resources out there and like things like this, that hopefully there's going to be more education around, making a profit.
Yeah. So I think that we can dive into the nitty gritty a little bit. Ben, I think if you want to share a little bit about how you go about determining your price, and then I think we can share that too. This is the hard part.
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely the hard part. I don't want to, I guess, steal your storyline, so I kind of want you guys to go first, if that's okay.
Cool. Totally. Yeah. So for us, this was something we really struggled with in the beginning. Even before we were doing poultry, when we were just doing flowers, we really had no idea how to price ourselves. And at that time, we realized that our understanding about pricing was mostly the idea of like just pricing based on your competitors. So I think, that's commonly referred to as pricing vertically based on the people around you. But we didn't know what we know now, which is that we should also, and most importantly, be pricing horizontally based on our cost of production. And so with our poultry, when we started doing more of the meat, that is where we started with what are our inputs actually look like with these animals. And I do have a spreadsheet that I can share a little bit more later on, just to give a reference, but we start with that. Like we know what our inputs are. With pastured poultry, I will say, I think something that's different is that there's a lot of labor involved. And that's hard to account for. And a lot of that labor is the stuff that we know happens day to day, right? Like moving fence, feed, water. But then there's also the labor that's like a little bit harder to identify and harder to see, like the labor of advertising, the distribution, the website fees. There's just like a lot of other costs that are involved. And so we have worked hard to make sure we're actually accounting for all of that. And then, I know this is something that Ben, your farm looks different than ours, but we're driving, 2.5 hours to the processor and back, and then back again to pick up birds. So that's a pretty substantial input cost that we want to make sure that we're accurately accounting for. And so when it's all said and done, we realized that simply pricing vertically or looking at either grocery store costs or even just other farmer costs really didn't help us much and really would have put us in the red if that's where we had gone. But knowing actually what it costs to produce each bird has allowed us to price in a way that we know that we're not losing money on every bird. And we've been able to communicate with our customers exactly like what our situation looks like to the extent that we need to. And I think as young beginning farmers who are in, year 2, 3-ish of raising pastured poultry, we're still learning, like we're still accounting for loss. Like we're accounting for the fact that things just don't go right because we're still learning. And we will be for a long time, but I think especially the first couple of years of something is hard. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we price. I feel like we only have just gotten to the point this year where we have a nice spreadsheet that pumps out some numbers and we know our profit, but that didn't happen at first. At first, it was more like scribbling down in our notebook, like this is how much we spent on feed, and this is the big check we're going to write for processing, and this is the amount of money we just filled up the truck 2 times to get to the processor, and this is how much it looked like. So it's helped us also to really understand and know that you don't need to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Like, it's okay to not have the most prettiest spreadsheet that pops out the numbers when you first start, but like having some numbers is important. And that even same for labor, I think it can be really challenging and intimidating to try to even go about calculating your labor, because I think most of us work really hard and we're not paying ourselves at all or enough. And so you just ignore it as a cost, but that's not great. And so for us, we've worked to like at least identify a good estimate of what those labor costs really are. So if we have to have replacement labor, we are at least accommodating for that in our pricing. Do you want to add anything?
God, no, you did fabulous.
I'm sorry.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you went first there, because I didn't want to steal the thunder about how you know, pricing based on what other people price at, because I think that, again, so many of us are underpricing ourselves, both the customer expectation for poultry is that the cost should be low. And then we also, as a farming community, we're wanting to, not be insulted at the farmer's market or whatever it is when you're talking to customers. You want to feel good. You want them to feel happy about the price. And so then, we're dropping down the price. And then you throw in the mix with that, the martyrdom mentality that we have as farmers, that, we are so lucky to be able to do this. And so it's okay that we don't make any money. And I think all of that is so, so terribly wrong. It just builds on this, I guess, this notion that farmers have to be privileged to be able to do this. And so I think it is really, really critical to be able to, know what your actual costs of production are, and to have to, figure out what it is that's a viable price. And I know that we're going to go into some of the details and numbers here. So this is just a broad-based overview of how we price things. And I think that it's not, we don't get into farming to do numbers. We don't get into farming to figure out profitability in spreadsheets. But I think that if we're going to stay in farming, if people are going to be farmers, and this is something that's absolutely critical that we do, is know our numbers and know how to price things. And I think that if we get into questions and answers, and like, there are ways that Anna and Shae and myself, we gather the data to put into the spreadsheets, and would be happy to, share that with you guys. But as a broad subject here, like I was farming and I had absolutely no concept of what my costs were. And I was just having a great time, except for the fact that I was, massive feed bills, processing bills, and I was borrowing money from my personal money to be able to pay these bills. And it just kind of, I got so low in terms of the business viability that I absolutely had to do something to figure out profitability, or I had to stop farming. And so I kind of dialed it in and just started doing rudimentary ways of data tracking, and then plugging it into spreadsheets, figuring out Excel, figuring out spreadsheets, and then going from there. But it definitely, like Anna said, it's not something that has to be perfect from the start. Any data is better than no data. And, you do it, you get better every single season, every single time, every single batch that you do things. But this is just so critical. And because with livestock, especially, I mean, any poultry, but especially with livestock, it is so much money. We are just throwing around so much money that if it's not done in a way that's profitable, then it is scary how much money you can blow in a very short time. Whether it's processing, or it's feed bills, or land costs, whatever it is, buying animals, all of this is just a ton of money. And I think just the way that I also throw into my counting here is the amount of cash flow, because our return on the investment, say you buy that cute little batch of ducks on the screen, you're going to buy that batch of ducks, and then it's going to be 8 weeks till they're ready. And then you might be sitting on that batch of ducks. Like right now, I've got about 1,500 ducks sitting in the freezer that is supposed to be my duck supply until June or July. And each one of those ducks represents this $27 investment. So $27 times 1,500 is what, $40,000? And so that's money that's been sitting in the freezer since November. So I have to cash flow that 40 grand from November onwards. And so it's not only just the amount of money it costs to produce something, but it's also the amount of time that it takes to get that money back.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add too, Ben, when you're talking about just the quantity of money, I think it's also just like this immense opportunity as livestock producers that we have to have just very real, tangible, economic influence in our communities and to support our rural areas by actually having enterprises that put money back into our communities and to other businesses. So I think we have a responsibility also as producers to figure out how to stay in business so that we can keep supporting those other businesses.
Mm-hmm.
PFI does a great job talking about this. I know if you haven't already seen the film Livestock on the Land, I would suggest it because they talk a lot about the economic impact of animals. But yeah, I think it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're not healthy as our own enterprises, then we can't, build economic viability. And I mean, how cool is it that our farms can serve as economic impetus for our areas, which, I mean, I'm sure it's the same in Iowa, but here in North Carolina, like our rural areas are just so degraded, economically poor, and it's great to be able to have an impact where your business is supporting other businesses. A question came in that I think is really important to this conversation we're talking about. Laura Tidrick wrote, totally agree. It's not about how you want to base your pricing, but curious, how do you compare to competitors and how your customers respond to the price? I would say, damn your competitors, damn your customers. You got to price how it needs to be priced. And if they don't want to buy it, then don't sell it. I've always been 20 to 50% higher than anyone else. I'm still 20 to 50% higher than anyone else that I know of in this state. And I still sell 5 times, the next biggest producer is only doing like 3,000 chickens a year. I did 6,000 chickens and 2,000 ducks and 500 something turkeys. And I still sell more. I still have more wholesale deals, and I'm higher priced than anyone else out there. And I would say you're not selling something based on price. If your customer wants something cheap, there are so many options for them for cheap poultry. They're already coming to you for something expensive. And if they're going to pay, 15, 20% more to buy from you than the next person over, then that shouldn't matter to them. What they're buying is quality. And a lot of times from farmers, what they have to buy is confidence. Because let's be real, a lot of farms are sketch. There's a lot of meat out there. There's a lot of meat out there at the farmer's market I won't touch, and I am in the meat world. I don't trust it. It doesn't look good. Packaging's bad. The farmer's dirty. Cooler's gross. Like there's so many reasons. There's so many ways that you can increase your sales that aren't about price. Quality and consistency outweigh anything about price. I do so many wholesale clients because I'm consistent and I offer year-round supply and my stuff looks good and I offer quality service, and those things are going to beat out price. So don't race to the bottom. Don't race to try to be the cheapest. Race to the top and be the best, and price yourself accordingly.
Also, something that we talk about a lot is that our customers are definitely buying just the whole experience. They're buying from us because they like our story, they like our personalities, they like our customer service, they like our social media, our website. And I think overall, we just, that we have a really high quality product. People are willing to purchase consistently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we've learned a lot from Ben, about being confident, about being higher price on things that we need to be in order to, adequately accommodate our cost of production. And we know that we can't compete with lower cost. Like I know that if we price lower, we're gonna lose money. And I feel like, if I do have a customer at the farmer's market or someone who does want to engage with that conversation with me, knowing my numbers and feeling really confident about it, allows me to then explain if I want, it's not always the right thing to dive into that conversation, but when it is the right thing or with the right person, to feel really confident in explaining it's expensive to raise poultry, and we're writing thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of checks, this money is flowing through us and going somewhere else too. And being able to explain that to people is really helpful. And I will say too, as a beginning farmer, it still gives me knots in my stomach. When people do bring it up, it doesn't feel good, right? I want to be able to provide for it, and I don't want to turn anyone away. And it's really hard, but I also look at our numbers and I'm we're definitely not exploiting people or unnecessarily charging. We're charging a very fair value, and it is higher. And so, that's what I would have to say about that.
I would add that it never feels good.
Yeah.
10 years in, however many tens of thousands of birds, it still doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But again, it's there's so many, if we wanted to be in any other industry, we could work half as hard and make 4 times as much money and without the risk. So, I mean, you just gotta push on and accept it as part of the deal. And if you're not okay being in that uncomfortable place, then don't do it. Find something else to do.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of there's so much value in kind of getting to the economy of scale of, so hard to even define farm size. I feel especially in Iowa and probably North Carolina, but I'm getting to a kind of a mid-size point where we're really producing enough to, we're also being able to sell year round and really being able to meet supply in a real way. It's we need people to buy at our price so that we can scale at an appropriate way and actually be able to meet restaurant contracts 12 months a year, or actually be able to do our meat CSA 12 months a year and actually provide food for people. And if we didn't want to make money doing this, yes, maybe we could raise a 50 birds a year and sell them a little cheaper and not worry about making money. But then we're just a different scale of who you're feeding. So that was rambling. Okay. You want to ask?
Yeah. Next question. How often do you evaluate your pricing? I know this was a kind of a struggle for us in the beginning, especially, and now it's something that we talk about very regularly. And I think both of us think about the prices at the grocery store are constantly changing. And I feel as farmers, sometimes we're hesitant to even change our prices once a year or something, but it's something now that we have it's something that we talk about a lot because our inputs do change, things are not staying constantly the same. So,
yeah. And I think being in kind of the, in an area where your family and we pay attention generally to commodity prices, and I'm they change every day. And so, we might not change our prices every day, but our grain prices definitely change every day. And for something that's a monogastric animal, that's a grain-based animal, there's constant fluctuation. So we haven't found a total answer to how often we evaluate our prices, but at this point, we do at least look at them probably once a month. Yeah. What does that look like for you, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you're bringing up these models of how things on the commodity market, they're changing all the time. They're changing every day. And I think that, you know, unfortunately for us is like they have someone who every single day is their job is just to go through and track prices and make decisions based on what their numbers look like. And we have, as farmers, we wear so many hats, we do so many things, that it's unrealistic for us to be tracking these things on a daily basis. So, I mean, generally what I do, I track all my numbers and I keep that raw data, and I go through it through the winter. And in the winter time is I put all those numbers, I take every single batch of birds that I do through the year, and I evaluate batch to batch. And then then I look at that across the entire year and see what the average cost is and figure out, what was the cost per batch. And if there's any big fluctuations between batches, try to figure that out. But yeah, I mean, it's something that the more often we do it, the better. But based on just the practicalities of being a farmer, it's not happening nearly enough. But I would say, do it at a bare minimum, do it once a year. If you see big changes in your cost of production, then do it more regularly. I think that last year I changed probably, at least 3-4 times I was changing my prices on everything. It's easier to do on a retail basis because you just change your prices. But on a wholesale basis, you have to notify each one of your customers that you're changing the prices, because they need to change their prices. And that's just, something that it's a little harder with wholesale, but it's still something that's critical. I know I sweated a lot when I was, talking to my duck customers about changing the prices, because their restaurants are certainly the most price conscious, more so than my farm partners. But they totally understood it. We're, especially right now, the last couple of years when we've been facing so many price changes, everybody's used to it. It's just something you got to do it. But I'd say if you don't keep that data, if you don't keep that raw data, you'll never be able to value your pricing. And so even though I'm not evaluating my prices batch per batch as the season goes on, I am taking that time to track the data so that I have the ability I have the ability with that data to later on go and put it in a spreadsheet. And over the years, I've developed systems where I'm able to track the data over time, and not forget what goes where. But if you're just starting out, you might not be able to have the systems of remembering what happened 6 months ago. And so you may want to just do it on the fly, especially when you're starting out. Do it every single batch. Just make the time to do it. And I promise you, if you think you're busy now when you're doing a couple hundred birds, when you start doing several thousand birds, it's going to look totally different. So just start setting up the exercises and putting yourself in place to be doing it regularly now, and then carry on those habits in the future. But yeah, and in short, I wish I did it more often. I wish I did it every single batch throughout the year. But right now, doing it once a year is sufficient for where I'm at. But more often is always better.
Yeah, and I think that's something you told me a couple years ago, is that it's easier to lower your prices than to raise them. And so I think if I was to go back and tell our 2019 beginning farmer selves, we weren't raising poultry at scale at that time, but I would have at least made our flour prices higher from the get-go. Versus now we've had to have kind of a sharp increase in the last year because we actually understand that we're breaking even on them. And it would have been easier to not suddenly do that. Okay, I feel like we should speed along because I don't want us to not have time for questions. I feel like we already
kind of
talked about this, so maybe we can skip over it to make sure we have room for questions. But if there's anything else you want to add, or Ben, you want to add about communicating to customers, we could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did talk about that. One person wrote in about how we communicate price increases to the CSA. And I can just briefly touch on that. Like there's a couple different ways to do this. I mean, one, never eat the cost. Just don't do it. That is a terrible, terrible business model. I guarantee you, Tyson, Purdue do not do that. Neither should you. Do not be a martyr to your customers. Your customers almost certainly have more money than you do. And they do not want to short you. And they would feel terrible if they knew that they were shorting you. Don't do it. There's two ways to go about increasing your CSA cost, because if you're like me, what it is, I do rolling and it's automatic. They pay for what they get every single month on a monthly basis. What I did is I didn't raise my costs. I just dropped the size of the boxes, and which worked out well for me because most people were complaining there's too much meat in the boxes anyways. So I just shrunk the boxes and then never raised the prices. But you could certainly raise the prices or do a combination of both. It's, looking back, I probably should have done a combination. I probably should have raised the prices and dropped the box. But, whatever, however you want to work it, is good. Just don't eat the cost. Just account for that cost somewhere, somehow, and make sure that the numbers match.
Yeah. I don't think we have anything to add on that. We've done a similar thing. And I think we've also kind of covered this too. Like we're also, we all know that we're in this period of time where there's a lot of talk about pricing. And the prices at the grocery store have obviously changed a lot. I think for us, in terms of if our pricing strategy has changed, we pay way more attention now. And I think that we have done very similar to Ben, with our CSA. We've cut off some weeks, but kept the box the same. And that's mostly with flowers, but we've also increased the price too. So we've done a combination of both, but, yeah, I guess one thing I wanted to add to this question and the last is, I think in the very beginning, I was doing a lot of overthinking about needing to like communicate every little decision to my customers. And then I learned that like my customers, they just need to know overarching things. They don't need to know when I'm changing the chicken price 50 cents. Like one, they're not going to notice. And two, I'm just going to raise the point that it doesn't matter. So I think that's helpful. Should we go on to them? Okay.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we're close to, I think, wanting to move on to questions for the last 20 minutes. This is an example of the enterprise budgeting that we've done. This has largely been through PFI's business training program, which is the like secondary part to the savings incentives program. I'll put that at the end for anyone that is in the PFI network or not in the PFI network. I think you can still do it to look at, but and I couldn't get this nicely on like one spreadsheet or on one slide. So I'll just like click through it. I'm happy to like actually share this with people. But for us, we have our different enterprises. We have the number or the quantity of sales through all the different channels. And then we go into cost of production. Mostly this is what we're looking at. We do put in a number for hired labor, even though we don't have any hired labor, but we do, Shae and I, we do $16 an hour, which is living wage in Delaware County as our labor cost that we calculate into our cost of production, or it's like $16.50 now. Yeah. We try to keep it on par with what cost of living in Delaware County is. All of the value add that goes into that. So processing, that's usually our biggest charge. And then we have our direct operating costs and our indirect operating costs. I mentioned like your website fees, your bank fees. Your insurance, like all of those, your liability insurance, like all of those costs should be calculated when you're doing your cost of production. And then after you put all those things in and your sales in, you will get a net profit from that. And we know those numbers for our different enterprises, which really helps with decision making and really helps us to figure out scale and sales channels. And if it makes sense to be doing wholesale or retailer, it really helps just like in general with being able to make decisions. But yes, I feel like in this format, you can't see the whole spreadsheet and I didn't put any numbers in. So I'm happy to share that with people. You can shoot me an Instagram message or an email. But I think we should spend the last 15 minutes now on questions so that folks have plenty of time.
Yeah, we've actually got Amos pointed out that we actually have 45 minutes. So if there's anything that, we want to go back and cover, or if we want to just see if questions and answers, fill up the remaining time.
Oh, I didn't know we had till 1:30.
Well, I have one comment about the spreadsheet. It's like, it felt like extremely like, what?
Oh,
Did you say something?
sorry, I'm trying to go back to it.
Oh, okay. Well, the spreadsheet, it felt really intimidating before we did it. It was like, there's so many numbers in it. It was really, it felt just overwhelming. And like, I think we were both kind of stressed out about it a bit because like neither of us necessarily used to identify as like being a numbers person or whatever. I, like Ben said earlier, we got into this because we wanted to farm, and, but after doing this, like the amount of like stress that felt relieved from knowing the numbers, like it's like indescribable. I feel like it's something that like being so much more confident about why we price how we are and like explaining that to the customers. It's just been like extremely helpful. I feel like I sleep better at night knowing what the numbers are, and knowing where we need to be. And I know that it can feel hard having the conversations with customers about where you're at, but it would feel a whole lot worse to be going like broke raising chickens. So it's worth having the tough conversations with people, and not everyone is your customer. And like, even yourself, you may not be your ideal customer for your business. So you might look at your prices and say, wow, I couldn't afford that. Or I don't think I'd buy a chicken for that price, but you may not be your ideal customer, and that's all right. Because there's someone out there that probably is. Do you have anything else to say?
No, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, Shae, I totally agree. And I think that I have found over the years that really there is someone out there for just about everything, except for maybe the mountain of chicken backs that I produce every year. But even that, we're getting better at having more outlets for it. But yeah, I mean, I remember when I started farming, someone told me that just put something in that spreadsheet, because whatever you put in there is going to be closer to the reality than a zero. So even if you're just starting out, like you could just plug in there, like you find your hatchery, you find the cost of the bird, you put $100 in there for bedding and heat. You put, depending on the size of the batch, you put say 30-40 hours of labor into that batch of birds. You put a couple $100 down for your infrastructure costs. And then you put down, what your processing costs are going to be if you're using somebody, if you're using a processor, if you're not, and you just put down a number, call it $7-8. And that generally a chicken's going to eat 15 pounds of feed, find out what the cost of your feed is, and then multiply that by 15 pounds, and then account for loss, and then account for a couple hours of time, or probably 15 minutes of time per bird for other indirect costs, and then just make it up and try to get really close, and you'll get somewhere. And then I would say, I don't know what you guys are shooting for profit margin, but I always shoot for the moon, over the moon. That's cheesy, sorry. um, but I always shoot for the moon because that's what every other business does. Every other business gets the highest price that they possibly can for their product. And so that's what I do as well. And I can promise you that no matter what your number is, it's not high enough. I'd love to get 100% profit margin. So that means if I put $20 into something, I want $20 profit. And that $20 profit means $20 after I paid myself in labor, after I paid all the expenses. That means $20 in my pocket after the enterprise is over. That's what I want. I don't always get that. With chicken, I'm right around 80%. The number that I'm getting the closest with on that is turkey. Especially Thanksgiving turkeys. Because it's a holiday and people get excited about it, I can really just go for it. And also I raise so many turkeys that everybody else sells out. And then people come looking to me because I still have turkeys left over. And so I am there with 100% margin on the turkeys. But I mean, generally, the more data that you can keep, and if people are interested, I can pull up some spreadsheets and, we can actually go over the real numbers. We have time about what these look like. But in general, just, do the best you can and then get better. Just start somewhere, and it might be terrible. Start somewhere. Email Anna and Shae, email me. Like, I'm happy to share data. I'm sure Anna and Shae are as well. Like this, you won't find this Googling, but would be happy to talk to anyone who wants to actually make their businesses profitable.
Ben, I think you should pull up those sheets if you're willing to.
Yeah, let me pull that up.
Yeah, and I will say, like, again, us being pretty new to this, like we're definitely not hitting 80%. We're shooting for closer to 50, 30% on some enterprises. And so, yeah, starting somewhere, but we're definitely not in the negatives on that. But we also have been, especially with the turkeys, the shooting for the moon is helpful.
Yeah, let me, I'm finding a spreadsheet here and then I can share it on my screen.
Yeah, and go ahead. I was going to just answer Susan's question quickly while you pulled that up. About how do you find the living hourly wage for your county? There's a couple different ways. MIT has like a living wage calculator that we've used. But for most counties in Iowa, like I'm pretty sure for Johnson County at least, and for Lynn and Delaware, it's pretty easy to just to Google it and to find a living wage for a single person, and then it shows you like living wage for someone with kids and blah blah blah. So for us, we try to make sure whenever we're calculating labor, that's our gold standard. And it's still not, whatever. It's not perfect, but it's a good price replacement. And I was going to say also, Susan, your question or your comment about the educational labor that's involved and communicating with customers. Yeah, I think that's like really real. And I feel like that is just like another piece of the puzzle that we do try to like account for in like the labor that goes into raising the birds, is that I know I'm gonna have to send out like X amount of emails about them and sharing about them to try to get people on board. Oh, this is great. Love a spreadsheet.
To continue what Anna said, in my spreadsheet, I have this, it's called non-production. And so this is conglomerate of everything that's not directly involved with the production of the birds, or of that batch, but it has to be counted for somewhere. So what I do is I just take all my numbers, like all the hours of emailing, spreadsheet working, freezer work, market work, all of those things, like anything that I'm doing that isn't directly involved in the production of the birds. which is a very small part of actually what you do. And then I divided across my 4 enterprises. I divided across chicken, turkeys, ducks, pigs, and then for my purpose, I just divided by 4. You could get more precise if you wanted to, but I'm happy with base. I don't care that much about the nitty-gritty details as, like 10%. As long as I get the bulk of it right, I'm very happy. So this is a batch chickens GM. That means a Goldmine farm, which is one of the contract farms we worked with this year. And this is just this is one of the numbers. So they started, it was 208 birds that we finished that we processed. So this is how much feed they ate at 49 cents a pound. Here in North Carolina and the South in general, we have like the highest feed costs in the country. So your prices are probably a fraction of that. But that's what my cost for non-GMO feed is here in North Carolina, 49 cents a pound. So multiply that, and here I have how much feed they ate, which was 3,300 pounds. This is just easy division. You can see the formula here is just the total weight of the birds divided by the total feed. Where's that? Or total weight of the bird divided by the total feed that they consumed. And then so that gives me that number. So that's per chicken is how much it costs me. $7.70 per chicken to feed that bird, which comes out to $1.81 a pound. And you can just go down. I can just go through and talk about every single thing. Labor for this one, it's a little bit different than if on a bird that I raise on my farm. I'm paying them 85 cents a pound. So you can see here the labor is going to be the weight of the birds times 85 cents a pound. That's processed, finished, packaged weight. And so this is my price per chicken, and then this is the price per pound. When I raise a bird on my farm, it's the same amount of time. It's the same amount. Basically, I took that 85 cents a pound is how much money or how much my labor cost is when I raise something on my farm. Between like $3.50, $4.50, $3.50 to $4.50, and that's at $20 a pound, $20 an hour. And I have about 40-ish hours in a batch of birds. And I've settled on doing batches of 650. It's kind of a happy number for my systems. Cost of the chicks here, $1.44 per chicken. Electricity, I don't track this. If you want to be really precise, there are ways to track electrical and things, but I just put a flat number in there. It's good enough for me. My processing cost, and then again, that non-production cost, which I talked about. So it comes out to, for the batch, is 4,701. So again, we're talking about a lot of money here. This is the money that I spent in those 8 weeks to get the birds in the freezer, and now I got to sell that stuff. So it's a good amount of money. So per chicken, that's $21.64, and $5.26 per pound. So that's $5.26 per pound, y'all. That's my cost. So I don't know what you guys are charging for your chicken, but your cost is probably about the same as mine per pound. So I know that pre-pandemic, I think I was charging $6 per pound for a chicken. My price was a lot lower then, but still be aware that when you actually do this exercise, you're going to be shocked at the actual cost of your stuff. Now they're in Iowa, up in the Midwest, in the grain belt, your cost for feed is going to be significantly cheaper, but the other costs are probably going to be about the same. And don't forget this number here. Don't forget to count for your labor. So these numbers here, this is actually the exercise I did in the spring when I changed all my prices. So this was the first batch of birds for the year, and I was like, whoa, I need to change my prices. So these margins here aren't correct, and neither is the gross or the net. I raised my prices on poultry 20 to 30% across the board to accommodate the price increases. So this is what I did is I took all my product in that batch and I put it into a spreadsheet. And this tells me the wholesale gross and the retail gross. And these numbers are not high enough. This 21.8% margin and this 40% margin, like that is, sorry, messed up. That is not nearly high enough to run this type of business with this kind of cash flow. If I was raising these chickens and then I sold them the next day once they were processed, this would be a great margin. But because I'm holding on to this product for so many months, this is not a margin which allows you to run a successful business. So I raised all my prices. So they're a lot higher here. They're a lot higher than on this number. For reference here, I will go to, you can see I've been a bad farmer and I haven't put in my entry data for this year. The winter weather here in North Carolina has been so nice. It's been really hard to do any computer work. It's like 65 degrees here today. It's going to be 80 on Thursday. Really hard to sit in front of a computer. So forgive me that I have been a very, very bad data entry farmer this year. But these are the base numbers with turkeys. This is a big number because I bought turkey poults instead of chicks. So I bought them at like 6 weeks or something like that. And then also the cost of picking them from Pennsylvania. So I had to pay someone and the gas to haul up to Pennsylvania to pick them up. So all included, 550 turkeys was $11,675. But you can see my cost per turkey is at $72.72. Price per pound is $4.15. And y'all, I flipped these turkeys for $9 a pound. So it says 54. It's actually 108% margin. So I made a lot of money doing turkeys, and I sold like 430 some turkeys this year, and then the rest I cut up for parts. So anyways, this is kind of a detailed breakdown of my spreadsheet. Happy to send this base model out to anybody. Another thing that I think is really important to account for is your land cost. So what I do is my land cost, my mortgage and my property tax is like $23,000 a year, something like that. And so I take that and I divided that by all my different enterprises, and that's where I get this number. So I think it's really important to account for that, even if it's not. There we go. That should change the formula some. But even if it's not like a precise cost, but I think it's really important to account for that. And even if you're on your family's land, or so you've got a friend who's giving you some land use, like still account for that cost for what it really should be in your area. So yeah, I mean that's kind of the baseline. Any questions there about that? Is that too much? Too much information? Just the right amount of information?
That was great, Ben. Thank you. I'm gonna dig back into some of the questions from the chat from a little bit earlier. We got some questions on breeds specifically. So what breeds do y'all raise?
I think folks over the moon and myself, we raise the same birds. We raise just the standard commercial birds. I raise a Cornish cross chicken. I raise a Pekin duck. I raise a broad-breasted white turkey. There are so many fun breeds of birds out there. Don't raise them. Raise them on if you want like a little homestead flock. I've got some Muscovy ducks that I absolutely love. They run around the farm and they're so cute. They hatch out ducklings on their own. It is just the most adorable thing in the world. They're fun, they're colorful, they have personalities. I would not dream of raising them commercially. Y'all, farming is really, 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 really hard. And working with these industrial breeds might not be as fun, but it is, people aren't going to pay you extra for these other birds. So it's just a practical decision to raise these commercial breeds because that is your road to success. I know there's a great conversation out there between Cornish crosses and Freedom Rangers. Y'all, I hate Freedom Rangers. They take 50% as long to grow out. They are a pain on pasture to manage. And I also have run a processing facility the last like 5-6 years. and they are a pain to process. They take longer to process, they're harder to process. You end up with scratches and bruises on yourself because they're beating you up on the processing line. The breasts are smaller, so you're getting a smaller yield on your most expensive cut. Unless your customer is willing to pay you 50% more for that feed arranger, why? Why put yourself through that? Why do the extra work and the extra hassle and the extra time if you're not getting any more return? We already don't get enough return for our products. So I'm just going to raise a corn cross because that's the most direct line to being able to run a profitable enterprise.
It looks like we lost Ann and Shae there with their internet connection. But in the meantime, Ben, I'll just keep lobbing questions at you.
Yeah.
How do you determine price per cut, breast, legs, thighs, etc., versus whole bird?
Yeah, so the way I do that, I have a spreadsheet for that too. But the way I generally do that is I'm looking at what's the most popular cut. So for a chicken, that's going to be your boneless breasts. And then follow that by the thighs, and then all the way down the chart to the backs. And so what I try to do is say, all right, I know that I'm going to sell the breasts and the thighs. And I want to get the entire cost of that chicken. Sorry, if I were to sell that chicken whole, at my retail price of $7.50 a pound. If I were to sell that chicken for that price, let's say it was $35. I want to be able to get my entire $35 from the breast and the thighs, plus the margin, the cost of cutting it up. Welcome back, guys. Plus, we're talking about pricing cuts. So I was saying that I want to be able to get the entire cost of the bird from the thigh and the breast, and then plus the margin of being able to cut it up. So I want my entire profit and my entire cost just on the breast and the thighs. And then I know I'm going to sell that. I'm going to sell it quickly. The drumsticks, the wings, the backs, I might not sell at all. I might have to sell at a discount. I might have to put it into the CSA box. Like there's so many ways that I'm going to have to get rid of it. But the thigh and the breast is really the critical part. So I put the burden of the cost on the breast and the thighs. My boneless breasts are $19 a pound. The thighs are $15 a pound. And then everything else is cheaper. My drumsticks right now are at $8 a pound. So like half the cost of the thighs, and still I sell so many stupid thighs and so few drumsticks. It's really aggravating to me. I'll have people come up and they'll buy like a package of breasts and a package of thighs. I'm like, hey, look, you could buy a whole chicken and get the wings, get the drumsticks, get the back, make a soup for the cost of the breast and the thighs. But they're like, oh no, thanks. I just like the breast and the thighs. I don't want anything else. It's just like so aggravating. But that's how people roll. So yeah, definitely I prioritize the the more in-demand cuts and put the burden and the price structure on them, and then go down the list from there. Does that answer the question? Whoever asked that question, Stephanie? And I don't know if you guys, Ann and Shae, have anything to add to that.
No, I mean, we have a similar experience. It's like, I feel like I sell out of thighs so fast at the farmer's market. Yeah. And I have similar pricing structure to you, Ben. I can answer Scott's question about the processing laws in regards to individual cuts. We're taking all our birds to a federally inspected plant. So we're taking everyone. We go to Illinois. For us, that one, we don't want to process on farm, and two, based on the model that we have, which is being able to do farmers markets and being able to deliver and do the CSA and sell wholesale. We need to be going to we need to be going to an inspected plant. So because of that, they're able to do the cuts and it's all legal and good. But yeah, I know that for folks that are processing on farm, under those exemptions, I know that's like a whole different ballgame.
Mhm. And we also, I don't know if this is totally related, but we also do have the freezer warehousing license through IDOL. The warehousing.
There's a question here. Do you ever try to pre-sell the birds at a discount before you even buy the chicks?
The turkeys.
But we don't do a discount. Like,
No, it's
I
not
guess,
discount, yeah.
so we do pre-sales for us, with turkeys. At least this year we asked for a $50 deposit. So that, almost, not quite, like cut the cost in half for people. And also, and turkeys are really expensive to raise. Like there's a lot of money that goes into them. And so we really, really needed that money up front to even be able to do the quantity that we did. And so that was helpful, but we don't give a discount. I feel like for our CSA sales and other things like that, I really try to go off of the model of not doing a discount because I don't want to eat that money, but trying to give people something more maybe. So maybe they get early access to something, to a CSA sign up. If they buy the turkey early, maybe they get to be the first on the wait list for like a holiday ham that we have a limited quantity of. So I feel like for us, like, and we're not perfect at this, but like we are trying to make sure that when we're trying to incentivize people, we're not losing money in the process, because we really do have like so much else to offer, even if it's like sending them a special email or something. And I will say that we have tried to pre-sell chickens, again, not at a discount, but we've like pre-sold batches. And it, it works fine. Like, I think
Except for it's just more work on us.
yes, it's
honestly.
more like logistical work. So we haven't done it with chickens. The turkeys, because of their cost of production, we've needed to do it. We'll see what we do as we kind of grow, but yeah. What about you, Ben? Do you pre-sell anything besides the CSA?
Yeah, I mean, the turkeys, like you guys, I take a deposit. That really does help. And this year I actually finished my turkeys early, and then people got to choose the size turkey they wanted. And that helped because then I got paid for that turkey well in advance, which helped me cash flow them because, like you said, turkeys are really expensive. I think that on that spread, I think it was like 40 grand or something I threw at those turkeys between May and August. So yeah, it's a lot of money. So being able to get that money helps. I have in the past done a model, like a CSA model for the birds. So what I'll do is, like, the day after processing, people come and pick up a certain number of birds, and that helped at a certain scale because basically the sale from those 40 turkey chickens or something would help cash flow the processing cost. But I haven't done it in several years. One, because now the amount of money that isn't very much compared to the scale that I'm at now. It just doesn't help very much, and it's a major pain because I have to communicate with those customers. They have to come out to the farm and meet me, so I have to be there. And then they want to talk, and it's like, I got other things to do. Like, I'm covered in sweat. There might be like chicken poop on my forehead. Like, it's just, I don't want to stop my day to try to, work with you on picking up these birds anymore. So it can work. I certainly recommend it, trying it, especially at the beginning, just to get cash flow. Really helps, but I don't do it anymore except for the turkeys. But turkeys, it's also kind of like this. You're playing with this mentality of a shortage, right? Like, I only have so many turkeys. You're only going to get it on this time of year. It's the grocery stores do the same thing. Like, generally, like the grocery stores, they're also taking reservations. So for turkeys, I'm tapping into that holiday frenetic energy. Trying to do it ethically, but still, like, I'm tapping into that energy and maximizing it, and taking the reservations deposits there. But otherwise, I mean, I just try to it's not worth the return. But you know, it's not to say there's not a good model out there. I think that the CSA does bring me some of that because it is a guaranteed sale that comes in once a month. So, but yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the CSA model is awesome for that, and I think the CSA model is awesome for doing things like moving some more challenging cuts, like drumsticks and wings that are really great to eat, but they're maybe less desirable at like a market.
Yeah, absolutely. That always bugs me, is the people not wanting the drumsticks and the wings. I mean, the bags. I mean, I compost. We do our own processing. I compost just thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pounds of backs every year, and it's just the saddest thing in the world. It's a third of the chicken that you're just tossing. But
Thank you for that. I've got a question here on how do you feed all your birds, i.e. mix your own, bulk delivery?
I buy it from the feed mill. I let them take their own equipment and their own knowledge, and I just get the feed in. I give them a custom ration made by Fertrell. They do a combok ration, which is totally fine, but I think Fertrell is based on a pastured bird, which has, you know, more nutritional needs than a barn raised bird. So Fertrell's ration is what I use. I just find that online if you just Google it, and I give that to the feed mill, and then they go and they mix it. I don't mess around. I've never mixed my own feed. I know Anna and Shae have some experience with that. I would say if you're gonna do that, treat it the same way that you should treat your labor, and account for your time and account for your equipment and your infrastructure. Because I know I have some farmer friends who are like, yeah, I mix my own feed and I save so much money and I grow my own corn and yada yada. It's like, okay, great. I think that's really cool. But if you actually accounted for your time and your equipment, you're probably spending more money than I am by buying it. Because you have equipment which is, I don't know these economics, but I'm sure the equipment's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Your land that you're giving to those grains is worth, you know, for me, like I can raise more money selling a chicken than I can selling corn or growing corn for myself. And then your time mixing it. So the feed mill has better equipment than I could buy on a shoestring budget. And they've got the expertise. And they're also cash flowing all that grain. So they buy it in and then they mix it on demand and bring it to me. And I also buy it in 50-pound bags, which I know a lot of farmers would gasp at, that I'm not buying it in bulk. I mean, I do buy by the tons. My feed mill does a 4-ton maximum delivery. So that's what I get is 4 tons at a time. And it's in 50-pound bags because it's a lot easier for me to move around a 50-pound bag than buckets. Buckets are hard on your body. A 50-pound bag, I pick it up, throw it over my shoulder, and I go. And it's just super convenient. I load them up in the back of my truck, I drive them out to the field, and I fill up the feeders. That's a lot easier than the bucket system because you're just going to end up with messed up body parts. So for me, yeah, buying it in grain, buying it in bags, doing everything that a lot of farmers will tell you not to do, but I'm gonna put the burden of the price on the customer and not sacrifice my body to get a cheaper product or my time to get a cheaper product. But,
Yeah, so
I know you guys have some experience. Go ahead.
Well, we've done a variety. For those local to Eastern Iowa, we have gone through D&J feed and Hop Kitten for some of the stuff. This year, I think we're planning to have them mix our starter for us. So we're going to get it delivered by the ton. And in the past, we've done some of the broiler rations through D&J, and we've done the 50-pound bags and whatnot. But we've also mixed too. We've done some mixing on farm. we have access to, my family raises beef cattle, so we have the machinery already on farm. So that definitely made a difference in us choosing to explore that. And I bought the premix. I bought a couple different ones and I've tried over the last couple years, but we bought through Frontier Feed, which is out of Monticello for those, local-ish. And they deliver the premix, so that's the vitamins, and then I also order the soybean meal, and then we do mix that on farm for like when we've done the turkeys. It's for us, we're usually pretty busy in the summer with the flowers and whatnot, so like for us to go to Hop Kitten and get feed as often as we were, it was challenging. They don't deliver the bags, but they will do the bulk feed deliveries. So we were having to go pick up quite often. So then for the turkeys, we did mix our own for most of the turkeys and the broilers at the end of our season. We did mix the own like finisher grower ration.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't know if this has been published yet, but we did a PFI trial this past June. I don't know if it's online yet, but where we did some comparing of different rations, and our data on like what our cost per pound of feed should be on that. So I don't know if it's on the PFI website yet, but if it is, you can check it out. But we're probably at about like half of what Ben is spending on feed. And that would be both. Our price is like pretty much the same, whether or not we're mixing on farm or getting it from D&J. Like when it's all said and done.
Yeah, with the corn prices this last year, it's high no matter what.
Yeah.
So,
But it's still half
cheaper than what.
It's still cheaper than what you're doing, but closer to like 30 cents, 27 cents per pound.
Yeah, as I said, we have like the highest grain prices in the country here. And that's just my reality, and it sucks, but it's what I have. I mean, and for you guys in the grain belt, it's kind of cool because you have a lot more options with your pricing. You can be a lot more competitive in how you go after restaurants and things. Because if a restaurant's if they have the choice to buy from me or a national business, the national business is getting the cheapest grain there is, and I'm buying the most expensive. And so you do have if you look at where Texas is, like Texas, there are so many pasture poultry producers and so many people doing it at scale, and they have the cheapest grain in the country. And so there's a lot more access to grocery stores and restaurants who are buying the product just because it's cheaper. Whereas I rarely sell chicken to a restaurant because it's just uneconomical, not economically viable for them. But if your cost of grain goes from $7.75 in my case to $3.50, that makes your bird a lot more accessible.
Shae, I'll say that your research report isn't online yet, but if the folks watching sign up for the PFI Livestock e-newsletter, I'll be sure to include that when it comes out. I have a question about where do you get your chicks, and can you speak on navigating a relationship with a hatchery?
I mean, do you guys want to go?
I think we do, I think we do the same thing as you do for at least ducks, I know. With Metzer, we've been doing chicks from them too. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what to.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a funny question because it's like, I don't really care. To be real, like whoever has the birds and has good shipping routes, I'm going to buy them. I'm not worried about the price. Like if we go back to my spreadsheet here, it's I'm looking here. My chicken's cost of a chick is what, $1 like 40 something. It's just such a small part of the overall cost of the bird. Like it just almost doesn't matter that if it's 15, 20 cents higher. What matters to me is it a good shipping route? So like Anna said, like Metzer is where I've got my ducks from historically, and they came from California. And sometimes I get those birds all the way on the East Coast. It'd be 3 days later, and those birds did not look good. There were a lot of death on arrival, DOAs, and they just took a long time to get over that stress of the trip, especially during the shoulder season when weather is going to vary. And it's a little scary. So Metzer opened up a Tennessee hatchery last year, and my shipping exponentially got better. So I'd say that's your most important thing, is look at the shipping. This year, I'm actually going to get chicks from a place called So Big Farms in Texas. They helped me last year in a pinch when my hatchery canceled on me. And they're a little more pricey, but he's, small independent producer, and he is really geared towards working with those pastured poultry producers. So Big Farms, I got one batch of birds from him, and I was really happy. They showed up really quickly from the feed mill. They seemed bright and ready to run and be happy and grow. And I think that's your most important part. Don't worry so much about, the price or whatever. Just get it from a hatchery that can get them to you quickly, because that is going to make all the difference in the world. I know a farm down in Florida, and they get all their birds brought to them day of hatchery. And if you can work out that arrangement, it is amazing. I had it happen once. They brought me birds. I was working with a hatchery in Pennsylvania, and they had a truckload coming down to North Carolina anyways. And so I got my birds on the truck, and that was the best batch of birds I've ever brooded. So if you have a hatchery in your backyard, I mean, within a couple hours, and you can drive to them, do that. It doesn't matter what strain they're doing. It doesn't matter what their price is. I would work with someone if I was in driving distance of getting chicks, because that will be your absolute biggest factor, is how quickly you can get those birds from egg to your brooder.
Yeah, and I think in Iowa, we're pretty lucky that there is many hatchery options that for a lot of people are probably drivable.
Well, and we did Sunnyside Hatchery in Wisconsin, which was really good. I liked that they had speedy delivery.
It was fast.
It was really easy to work with, and it was fast. But otherwise, we've really not had any problems with. We had one box that I had to go pick up at the post office, but that was in Cedar Rapids, but that was our only problem. Everything else has come in that. God, we have pretty quick
Perks of being in the middle of the country.
Yeah. It's probably more of a thing for me on the West Coast, is make sure the shipping routes are good. I used to get better shipping routes from Ohio than Pennsylvania, just for whatever reason that traffic comes. Someone says, have you had any experience with Murray? For fun things. If I'm ordering my own personal layer flock, sure. I think that's fun. They have the best variety, but I'm not on a commercial basis. I don't think that's their niche. I don't think that there's anything wrong with them. They probably have great birds. May as well try it out. But here's the question about the relationship with the hatchery. Your hatchery doesn't care about you. The hatchery is a big business. They don't know that you exist. So don't worry about establishing a relationship with them. They don't care. They're doing so many birds that they really do not care about you. I would say that's not the case with So Big Farms in Texas. I think, I'm on a personal name by name basis with them. I text them my orders and stuff. That's different. That is a relationship. But if you're looking for a relationship from your hatchery, you're probably not going to get it.
All right, well, we've just got a couple of minutes left. Do any of you have any final words you want to say before we depart?
I was going to put up now it's gone, but I was going to put up some of the resources on the PowerPoint I had on that last page, but I will say them while I'm trying to pull it up. I would highly recommend FACT, the Food Animal Concerns Trust Humane Farming Mentorship Program, to anyone who's looking for, yes, Emma, that would be great. If for anyone who's looking for for support. This year's is closed, but applications will open again in the early part of next fall. And I would also recommend
The food finance.
yep, the Food Finance Institute's financial training boot camp. I think they have one that's coming up soon, so I would check that out if I were you. And then also Practical Farmers of Iowa's Savings Incentives Program, and then part 2 of that, the business coaching program. Great resources. Again, I think you can be part of that regardless of if you're in the state or not. Cornell, they have a meat price calculator, which can be a good helper, I feel like, for learning how to do some of these spreadsheets, or to just even play around with your numbers. And then the Good Meat Project has also been putting out quite a few webinars and resources, some of which pertain to pricing and marketing. So I just wanted to share that. And then also, again, like Ben said, we're both totally happy to chat with people and to support. We want as many of us and more of us to make it as possible. And so happy to connect via email or Instagram or whatnot. So thank you everyone for coming, and so glad to talk.
Thank you, everyone. As I said, this recording will be available here in the next day or two. So please feel free to look at it and share it with other folks you think would be interested. And be sure to come back next week for the food sovereignty with Jamie Murray. All right. Have a great week. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.